The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everybody, this is Zorian at A-Team here. We're going to get started very shortly, and it's going to be a great webinar today. And the guest speaker is actually at your local time zone, unlike myself. We'll let a couple of people trickle in here. We had over 100 registrants, so we'll just let folks join, and we will get started shortly. So give us just another minute. Thanks. And also, while we're letting folks trickle in, and I see more folks joining as we speak, just wanted to let you all know that if you will have questions at the end, we will have the Q&A going. And I notice here in the GoToWebinar, you can ask questions. There's a question drop down, or if it's easier for you, please by all means feel free to put it in the chat. That I think you can use. Either one is fine. We'll read the questions at the end of the presentations and try to answer all of them. Also, you will notice as we start the webinar, our emails will be available to you. We will have Roger's email that we will show you earlier on, and then at the end we'll show both of our emails. So should you have any questions, please make sure you'll note that, and we'll be happy to help you. So I guess people are still coming in, but I believe we can probably get started as is, and then whoever wants to join late, they'll just pick up where we are. So today's webinar is how to use OKR goals to align and grow in 2018. We have a great guest speaker today in the UK, and yeah, this is a multi-time zone webinar, but particularly focused on UK time, and it's Roger Longden. And you know, as we get started, I do want to say, from my perspective, I do admit we had some time zone confusion in some folks joining us earlier. We actually set up this webinar on a GMT time zone, all at the same time when there's a shift in time for the spring. So any problems that this may have caused, this is completely on me, on us at A-Team. It's not Roger's fault. Had he actually done it, it would have been done correctly. I know that for sure. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Roger. He's fantastic. Roger, please tell us more about yourself to all the attendees here.
Okay, thanks, Zorian. And thank you for the opportunity to talk on this webinar this afternoon. You've really picked something which is very close to my heart, which is OKRs. I lead a business here in the UK called There Be Giants, which are based out of Manchester, although we work all over Europe. And originally, There Be Giants was a coaching company, but it's evolved over its 8 years into a performance management consultancy, driven by two very distinct observations. One, that businesses often really struggle, even more so than developing the plan, they find executing the plan far more of a challenge. And secondly, the quality of performance management which goes on in many organizations is and I've done quite a significant amount of research into this, and there's also a lot more research out there that also agrees with this, actually undermines the very performance it seeks to motivate. So performance management is broken in many organizations if they're still following, in particular, the old annual appraisal-based approach. So very much driven by a desire to align activity and performance and outcomes with the priorities in the business plan. And as I mentioned, I've done quite a bit of research around that. I lecture on it at MMU Business School. I've just finished doing a whole series of lectures there for this year. As I said, we were a coaching business. We've evolved into the performance management consultancy, which we've been doing for a number of years now. And we have what we call the vision to results, the V2R model and method, which we use with clients to help them develop a very agile business strategy and then implement that using an OKR-based approach to goal management and helping them develop that into a much more engaging and agile approach to managing and motivating performance in the business. My own experience, I've worked both in corporate and also in high growth enterprises. As I mentioned there, I've worked in some hostile environments. I've worked both in prisons and also on oil rigs in the middle of the North Sea. And those are, believe me, some of the most challenging environments you could possibly work with and try and manage performance within. Yeah, I'm passionate about OKRs because I've seen not just the business results, but also the human impact that I've seen when they've been done really well. I was with a client yesterday who was, we were just evaluating the impact of an initial OKR pilot which they've completed. And when you get team members turning around to you and saying, do you know what? We actually are a team now. We're not just a group of people. You know, we understand what each of us are working on, and we understand why. We understand the purpose a lot more and the context. And you know, this is a team which has gotten to such a level of self-management that when their manager goes off in a few months for on maternity leave, the business is seriously questioning whether they actually need to bring in cover, because the team is now operating at a level of such effective self-management. So when OKRs are done really well, you don't just see the business benefit, you see the human benefit come through. So this is why I'm really bought into them, and I'm really pleased to be here with you today.
And Roger, can you click through also just to make sure that the mouse and everything works well before we hit the ground running?
Yep.
Okay, good. So really quickly on agenda, Roger will cover what are OKRs, why should you use them, you know, how do you go about building your first set of OKRs, what needs to happen then, and what are the pitfalls to avoid. And I will cover a little bit at the end on topics that I'm very passionate about, sort of continuing on the theme of connecting strategy to execution, and really, that's what OKRs will do for you, among many other things. And then kind of how to do real world OKR alignment. How do you actually align through objectives? That's a topic that doesn't really get covered a ton and in depth. So I think you're one of the select few who will actually get the edification and the knowledge from here in sort of a semi-MBA in alignment. So with no further ado, let's get started with Roger and about OKRs. Roger, go ahead and let's make sure this is working well.
Okay, just to reiterate what Zarian said a few moments ago, if there's any questions which you have, by all means, please do enter them into the little questions box on your GoToWebinar control panel, so that we can take them at the end. I'd be more than happy to answer questions. So a little bit about objectives and key results. A lot of people, when they first come across them, often roll their eyes when they see another three-letter acronym and they think, crikey, is this just another way of articulating smart objectives? Is it just another buzzword which is the latest thing? Well, OKRs are more than just an acronym. They're a whole philosophy, to be perfectly honest. I firmly believe that this, to such an extent that I've actually created an OKR manifesto. And this may sound like something that's quite profound, but I really do genuinely believe that if you are to adopt objectives and key results, it's a fundamental shift for the majority of organizations in terms of how they manage people and manage activity and manage the achievement of the results that they're looking for. So what I often see, where I often see OKRs fall down, and indeed we frequently will be called in by clients who have tried to do them for themselves, but six or 9 months down the road, they're not quite working, is that they fail to appreciate the cultural shift that's required to make sure that this works. So we have this manifesto, which, to be honest, we use up front in our engagements so that the client can be really, really clear about what they're looking about, what they're buying into, but to make OKRs effective. And as I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to pick out a few, I mean, feedback is absolutely central to OKRs, because that becomes part and parcel of the regular routine, the regular conversations, the regular cadence, which underpins the ongoing progress that's made against objectives and key results. I'll pick out transparency as well. By default, I was only just talking to a client about this morning. By default, OKRs, I fundamentally believe OKRs should be transparent unless there is justification on commercial grounds or personal grounds for them not to be. But the key point being that by default they should be transparent, so that everyone can see what everybody is working on, the progress that's being made, and that introduces a degree of accountability as well. And the other thing that I would pick out there is that it is about looking forwards, not necessarily about looking backwards. Yes, sure, you have to keep a track of progress, but looking forwards, a very big shift in OKRs to traditional objectives or objective conversations that have been part of performance management up till now, is that you should be talking about confidence to complete an objective. So if you feel that you are going to not quite hit an objective or fall short, then at least there's a discussion that's had beforehand, and that as a team you can look at what needs to be done to get that across the line. So that becomes, as a manager, that becomes your early warning system, and you don't have to wait until the end of the period, the end of the cycle, to find out that something hasn't hit. So there's just a few that I'm picking out from there, but this is just to reinforce that OKR is a distinct, it's more than just an acronym. There's a whole philosophy behind it, and a very, very effective one it is too. So how do they differ? Well, first of all, if you're going to do OKRs well, and I purposely didn't say right there, because if I'm completely honest, there is no right or wrong with OKRs, because there is no rule book. There is no big-brained professor in a business school somewhere in the States, for instance, that came up with objectives and key results. They genuinely evolved. They are, to coin a software term, very much open source. It's a collection of best practices which businesses have added to and continue to evolve. And so certain businesses may choose to adopt them in different ways. So this is what I'm talking through here is our view on how to get the best out of them. In terms of our approach, we believe they differ from traditional performance management, so traditional appraisal-based performance management, by the following points. So alignment and focus. First and foremost, they start with the strategy and the business plan, and should be driven by the priorities that are within that. So there should be an alignment all the way down to the front line of the business, so that those on the front line can absolutely understand the context in which they work and the OKRs that they are working to, that they've had an involvement in helping to set, have been very much guided by the priorities of the business. That there's a discussion on a very, very frequent basis at team level. Now, this is again another shift from the traditional approach of one-to-ones. We're not saying there shouldn't be one-to-ones, but it's no accident that in our approach we advocate the majority of conversations are actually had at team level. So we recommend discussing individual objectives, but as a team. Often our clients will get into adopting it. For any of you that are familiar with software project management and the agile approach to project management, you might be familiar with the term of sprinting. So that's where you get a chunk of time. Often for our clients it's 2 weeks, and you plan what work is going to be done within that 2 weeks. You plan it as a team, and that plan is pulled together in a very quick way, in a very nimble way, but is very much set within the context of the overriding objective, so the overriding OKRs. And that's the type of cadence which we work with clients to get them into. And cadence is so important because the routines, a lot of what we do, a lot of our approach, I've done quite a lot of work in sport with athletes, and I absolutely understand the principles of high performance and getting into those routines that almost become religion. That high performance is no accident. It's absolutely intentional. It's absolutely about the cadence. It's about the routines. The collaboration and learning. So because you have that discussion of individual objectives at team level, you have the opportunity to collaborate on them. So yes, there is accountability because you're discussing your own objectives in front of the rest of the team, but you also have the opportunity to offer help and ask for help, and also learn from things that might not quite go so right, because a big part of OKRs is to make them really stretching, which might mean that that not all of them might be achieved, but as long as there's learning in that's not achieved, and that learning is then very clearly applied, then that is that could be argued as being a success. Certainly not a complete failure, but that's certainly a degree of success in that. Systemization. Well, we're with Atom today. And there are some really great systems. Theirs is a fantastic one. I love the way that it brings strategy into the system. But the benefits of systemizing your OKRs is that the system can become the hub of information for objectives and progress against objectives throughout the whole organization, so that if you're on the front line and you're updating your objectives ready for your next team discussion, then that update can roll all the way up, if it's aligned to a strategic business priority, to demonstrate how your contribution has impacted upon that top level business priority, which gives you context and helps those at the top see the picture, see the almost real-time updates on progress against the priorities of the business, which brings us into the next point about everything being measurable. That's the key results element of objectives and key results. So a really good key result is something which is a statement which defines a measure of success, and that measure can be metric or it can be binary. It's better if it is metric, and that's what you are aiming for. So you're aiming to achieve a certain level, and that's how you'll know that you've achieved that particular objective. And finally, I've already briefly touched upon the point of transparency. With transparency comes a degree of accountability. Accountability is a very significant part of OKRs, and transparency is very important in helping to achieve that. So that's how I believe that certainly the way that we help clients adopt OKRs differs from the traditional appraisal-based approach to performance management. So where do they fit in? Well, we've already touched upon briefly, the plan and where vision and strategy come together to help you form the plan. So you've got that on the left-hand side, but then when you look, you come right down to the bottom level of where the work actually takes place. You've got initiatives, you've got actions, you've got activities which drive outputs. They develop, they deliver achievements. Now, often people will just finish there. People will just say, well, we've achieved that, we've ticked the box, that's fine. Not quite. It's about the outcome that achievement will give you. You might have been able to tick that box, but has it had the desired effect? And that's what the key result does. It articulates the outcome and then ultimately the impact that you want that outcome to have. And goal management, the way that OKRs work, covers everything from initiative right through to impact in a, as it says there, in a systematic, engaging and aligned way. So that shows how they map onto the strategy and the plan. So why OKRs? Well, I absolutely believe that they bring agility to the business. OKRs typically will work on a quarterly cycle and within the context of perhaps 12-month OKRs at a business strategic level. So I'm just working with a client at the moment that set their 12-month OKRs in December to start from January, but have actually been approached with the prospect of some significant expansion opportunities, and so therefore they've had to reevaluate. So they've actually recut their 12-month objectives, but because they were into a quarterly cycle of setting OKRs at team and individual level, that means that they have been able to, as we speak, literally recut or make sure that the next quarter that starts in April, that those new objectives are aligned to the new strategic level objectives which are coming into play for the business. So it really brings that agility and that flexibility around focus. It brings engagement because you're getting the teams to, like I say, develop this cadence of regular routine and regular discussion, and it brings that alignment between the activities that are going on a day-by-day basis and the priorities in the business. So where do we start? Well, as I mentioned when I was introducing myself and the business, we have our methodology, vision to results, and just this is how we follow it through. We start off with an assessment phase because not all businesses are right for OKRs. Some of them, really, I would say it needs a business needs to have ambition. It needs to be either on a growth path or wanting to go on a growth path. If it's a business which is mature, which is stable, which is not looking to grow, is just perhaps looking to harvest, then the question is, do they have the drive and the ambition, and would OKRs be right for them? Possibly not. Also, there might be some cultural challenges. For instance, if blame is really strong in the culture, then that's a big warning sign that OKRs wouldn't work there. So we'd help them look at challenges around managing the culture, and that's a whole different webinar that we can come on to maybe at a later date. So we've got this initial assessment phase. We then take them through the prime phase, which is about getting the foundations in place for OKRs, because if you don't put the foundations in place, when you get to the third phase of planning, you can finish the plan, have a huge amount of enthusiasm, a huge amount of eagerness, but then no means, no mechanism, no structures, no agreements, no understandings about how that's going to be put into play and how that's going to be executed. So you have to go through the agreements around how that's going to work and who's going to do what and how often they're going to do it and all that sort of stuff. And you know what, the energy just drains away because things take over and things get forgotten about, and it's just So we make a distinct point of putting prime before plan. So when you do your planning stage, you come out of the block sprinting, you get straight into your execute cycle, and I'll go into the execute cycle in a little bit more detail over the next few slides. So 5 points to get cracking with OKRs. The first thing that I would recommend is making sure that your vision is really, really sharp. And a structure that we absolutely love in There Be Giants for helping clients to articulate a vision is to come up with a purpose, okay? Come up with then what's the impact they want to achieve if they're going to fulfill that purpose, and then how are they going to do it? What's the way in which they're going to do it? Now, the purpose is usually the hardest bit in those three. And that really, if any of you come across Simon Sinek and his Start With Why, then really, if you ask why about 5 times, you'll get something close to the purpose. So I would really start with, your vision, because your vision comes before your strategy, okay? And try that structure on for size, and I think you might find it really helps. Then, okay, so we've got the vision. Then we take our clients through the development of the strategy to pretty much answer the question that's there. So to come up with a set of 3-year goals, okay, so if you're going to achieve that vision, where do you need to be within 3 years? Using that strategic planning canvas, which is our own one that we use with clients, to help them look at the business, take the lid off all the different parts of the business, and but also look outside the business. What's the impact they want to have in the marketplace, in the broader environment, and how do they connect with that through the channel, okay? And so, like I say, taking the lid off all that and going through that and coming up with, right, what are the goals that we need to achieve within 3 years to make sure that we're going to be making progress towards achieving that vision. The next step then is to chunk down from there. So we've gone from 3-year goals to 12-month OKRs, okay? So this is excuse me, this is where you ask yourself, where do we need to be in 12 months to know that we're on track to hit our 3-year goals? And these then should be articulated as objectives with very clear key results. Now, there can often be more than one key result against an objective, although I would caution you not to do too many. I recently was working with a team who were putting theirs together for the first time. It's their first set of OKRs, and someone came back to me with an objective with 16 key results against it. I loved his enthusiasm, but that was he was kind of going a little bit too far into down a rabbit hole there. So I would say probably bottom out at about three key results per objective. But the point being that these are 12-month ones, so these are what you should regard as the priorities for the business this year. Okay. Then from that you then chunk down to, okay, what are taking the top 4 of those 12-month OKRs? What do you need to achieve in the next 90 days to be on track? And the reason why we say the top 4 is because if you have too many priorities, then it becomes very difficult for people to understand really what they should be focusing on. The old saying is, I believe, if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. So that's why we force our clients to choose 4 of them, so that they can get a really laser-like focus on just the 4 top priorities. So then we take them through building what the 90-day ones are beneath that. Okay, those are articulated in the same way as objectives with key results, and everyone owns an OKR. So this is the senior team devising OKRs at business level for the next 90 days. Okay, And then the next step is then to share them. So the senior team, each member of the team, is then sharing their 3-month OKRs, those 90-day OKRs with their teams, and saying, right, now go away and have a go at drafting your own objectives and key results, and then let's get together and discuss and agree them. So we don't advocate, we do not recommend a really hard cascade approach, because that's very much in the mode of telling people what they should be doing. We really advocate more of a set the context and allow people to draft their own and then discuss and agree. Okay, so there's a bit of top down and a bit of bottom up there. And then 5, just get going. I see a lot of businesses that find all sorts of reasons not to get going. One of them often being, we don't have measures. We don't have many measures in the business. Do you know what? That's not a problem, because one of your first OKRs can be structured around getting those measures in place. So that by the time you get to the second quarter, you've got measures in place so that you can start to refine those key results and make them a bit more metric based rather than perhaps binary based. So absolutely, just get going. The whole point of OKRs is that, or certainly the way that we do them, is that there's a very, very large reflective, retrospective element to them. So at various points, we will be challenging our clients to reflect back, not just on what they've achieved, but also on the process, to make sure that they get all the learning that they can from it, and that they're constantly refining and developing it for the next cycle. So there we go. That's what we say in terms of getting going. Now, just a final mention, we have what we call the blueprint, which is the regular routine activities which we recommend a client starts with. We're not saying this is the complete answer, but we give them a starting point so that they can get going, rather than having to think of a way to do it for themselves or create it themselves. But then with this encouragement to reflect and review and adapt, we get them to do that on a cyclical basis, so that by the end of the year, they've absolutely tailored this and adapted it to their own to suit themselves. But this is just the starting point that we give them. Pitfalls, very, very quickly. The few things that I see clients often do is that they will try and put too much into OKRs to start off with. OKRs are not a mechanism for managing every single activity in the business. Business as usual activities should not be managed through OKRs. Only growth and or change activities should be managed through OKRs. If you put too much into OKRs, they become too time consuming to update, too lengthy to review, too cumbersome to discuss, and people just do not engage with them. Outcomes, not outputs. I briefly mentioned before, this is about making sure that you're articulating the absolute impact that you want to have, and you're not leaving it as ticking the box. And this is one of the biggest mindset shifts that I see with clients from an early stage, that they articulate they write their key results as actions rather than outcomes. Binary versus metric. As I said before, if you haven't got the measures in place, you can do a binary OKR, which is, have we achieved it, have we not achieved it? That's okay to get the ball rolling, but it's not very good to monitor progress, because you're either at 0% or 100%, but at least it's there, it's in the objectives, it's something which is being discussed, so it's better than nothing, but it's something that should be used sparingly. As I mentioned before, overloading can mean that you're throwing everything at OKRs. So if they're not being growth or change focused, then really you should be questioning whether they actually are appropriate in OKRs. And also, by not putting key performance indicators into OKRs, I get asked all the time, what's the difference between the two? Right, KPIs are measures, OKRs are a way of structuring objectives. Now, there's no reason, in fact, absolutely, OKRs are enhanced by including performance measures, key performance measures in them. So the OKRs and KPIs go together really, really well. So I'm going to leave it there and hand back to Zorian. And if you, like I say, if you've got any questions, then please put them in the box. But thanks very much, and I'll hand you over to Zorian.
Thanks so much, Roger. That was great. And you know, there's so many things you said there that I wish I didn't want to chime in and interrupt, but I did have this idea that we should probably do another webinar and go into like deep detail of actually wording the OKRs and structuring them and showing like specific examples, you know, make points about that. You know, and we do this a lot with our own customers, and we obviously do different things. You know, we are a software company here at A-Team. You are a you know, you tell people and train them and coach them and help them get the best process going and set up OKRs. You know, but when customers do ask us when they use our software about these things, everything you said totally aligns to what we tell them, and that's basically, you know, done is better than perfect. Get started. Don't worry about that. You know, you are just you know, you don't need to have everything perfect and quantified. You can have, you call them binary, we call them milestones, right? You're either, you know, done or not done. It's measurable, right? Measurable does not have to mean quantified. You can measure done or not done. That's binary, 1 or 0. You can measure in percentages, milestones, right? Are you 30% done or 2/3 done or 100% done, right? It's imperfect measurement, but it's far better than just flying by the seat of your pants, which is why getting started is far better than trying to seek perfection. You'll never get to it. So and there's so many other things you said that I just like totally was saying yes, definitely. So couple of things I want to talk about, you know, strategy and execution. One of the topics I'm really passionate about. I love this quote: "Vision without, you know, execution is hallucination." You can have all the vision in the world and all the strategy. And by the way, even if you set up, you know, Roger's model, you know, including the vision to results, the V2R as you call it, love that, and the way you approach setting up strategy. It's just fantastic. I mean, you can't really have OKRs unless first and foremost you have your strategic plan and at least strategic priorities carved out, sort of, I don't know, teased out or at least somehow agreed to with your board or your executive team, because otherwise you're just setting OKRs in vacuum. It makes no sense, right? And that is hallucination right there, because you're not really connecting, you know, your strategy to what's going on, or your objectives or OKRs to what's really important to the company, your priorities. And herein is the problem. So this is research by Harvard. You know, Robert Kaplan and David Norton are very famous strategy gurus. They don't really teach anymore. They're kind of, I think, professors emeriti, and they just go around and talk at Fortune 100 companies, right, globally. But they invented the balanced scorecard, right, and which is one of the fundamentals of strategic processes. But they did this research and they found that on average, 95% of employees actually don't even understand the company's strategy or strategic priorities, or therefore their goals. And when I say goals, I say that synonymously, just for like colloquial plain English terminology, which really is OKRs. OKRs, objectives, goals. OKRs are goals, they're objectives, right? So I don't want to get pedantic and academic about the fine nuances of the definition of what is a goal versus an objective when it comes to academia. But bottom line is most of the employees just don't understand your strategy or goals or OKRs, right? They just don't. Well, who are the 5% that do? Well, of course, it's your CEO and the executive team. There's a big problem if your entire company it doesn't matter how big your company is, but if really most of the people don't understand the strategy and the primary objectives, there's a ton of misalignment and ineffectiveness and inefficiency. Yeah, people are still doing tasks, right? They're still being busy. There's this famous expression, being busy is not enough, so are the ants. right? And Roger, I don't know if you remember who said this. It could have been even like someone like Abe Lincolnish or something, right? It was a funny phrase. It's just not enough to be busy. Everybody's busy. And then Luke Gerstner, who ran IBM and wrote a great book that every great executive probably has read. Elephants Can Dance, about how he turned around IBM. He also ran RJR Nabisco. He's retired now. Brilliant CEO and strategist. And he said, hey, don't confuse activity with results. Okay. Being busy and doing stuff, doing activities, doing tasks, being managed with tasks, or just checking off to-do lists, that's not results. That's not measurable results. So OKRs and goals, those are about outcomes and results at the end of those 90 days, at the end of the quarter, right? It's not about what tasks you do. You can do many different tasks, but it doesn't matter. As one of our customers, he's a very successful CEO who ran a couple of companies. He's using our software. And when he was becoming a customer of ours, he said, I don't give a hoot whether my employees, do 100 tasks or 1,000 tasks or 10 tasks. It doesn't matter as long as they achieve the result that is intended. It doesn't matter how many tasks they decide to do towards that result. I just care about did we achieve the result or not. And it's a very profound statement, right? Very poignant. Like, it's not good if people are just simply busy. What measurably are they actually achieving, and is it what you want them to achieve? Is it the intended objective, OKR? So really quickly on strategy, I know I don't have more than 20 minutes here, so I'm going to run through fast with a promise that we're going to do another webinar where we spend more time and ask you all questions in advance so we can cover them. But look, I mean, to Roger's point, the way you use Roger's model for teasing out your strategy and doing your strategic plan, the bottom line is you come up with roughly something like this. And this, by the way, the house analogy is right from the strategic themes from the Balanced Scorecard Institute. And I'm sort of like paraphrasing it. But let's say your three, four, or five strategic priorities are, but here it's like business growth, customer focus, and this and this and that, right? And it's building your on top of your mission to ultimately help you achieve your vision. Well, then you need goals or OKRs to connect all of that to execution. So like this is a screenshot from our product from what we call the visual goal alignment chart that allows you to show the visualization of alignment, and we'll talk about alignment in a minute. But you basically make your top corporate OKRs, the very top, which are really sort of owned by the CEO of the company, right? Typically, sometimes with some of our really large clients, companies with like a couple of thousand people, you'll have chief operating officer, sometimes even chief strategic officer of the company, sort of owning the top OKRs. But usually, it's the CEO who's really the final say on that. But the first one, the OKRs, of course, in a more detailed webinar, will explain use action verbs, so it instantly sends the message. But like it's grow the business connects to business growth, priority, and the customer focus. It's all about delighting your customers or exceeding customer expectations. However you word it, it connects directly to that strategic pillar, that strategic priority, which comes out of your strategic plan. So you can't really have OKRs without that. We actually have that in our product. This is not a product demo by any means, but just to connect the dots here in your product, in your strategy, you basically want to write out what strategic priorities are. We have the tops, the one-page strategy plan where you can write out your mission, your vision, your strategic priorities, and those are what is the foundation or maybe the pillar from which you get this top corporate OKR. And then, once you begin connecting strategy to execution, and it's done through alignment, which we'll talk about next. And that's kind of the MBA in alignment, but I'll have to do it super fast in a way that's still comprehensible, and digestible, but high level. Before getting into the alignment section, you begin doing strategy to execution link by bringing your objectives, which, as I explained in the prior couple of slides, and Roger explained earlier in the webinar, you basically teased out or formulated from your strategy. Your OKRs are from your strategy. So therefore, when you're sharing these OKRs or when people execute towards these OKRs, these objectives, or when you have alignment throughout the company from different business units, team levels, or even individuals, You connect all those when you need to and align and even contribute them, as I'll show you in a few minutes. Um, you connect them to those top OKRs, which were, you know, which emanate from your strategy, from that house analogy, from that. So then you bring those objectives to every meeting, which means you're bringing your strategy in the form of your top objectives or OKRs to your meetings. And every meeting you start with goals, not in vacuum, not in like, hey, how are things going? And people respond, oh, things are great. They're yeah, they're good. Well, what the heck does that mean? But if you identify what are the objectives, let's discuss how we're making progress towards these objectives, or what are the problems or bottlenecks or obstacles in hitting those objectives? Which objectives are at risk? We actually have a report called the at risk report. You click and you instantly instantly see all the objectives that are in the red right now, so that you can get ahead of the problem, so that you can turn the ship around, so you're not a quarter too late, or a couple of quarters too late in identifying that the key objectives, you're really behind on them, or they're way in the red. When you are checking in on your OKRs frequently, and when I say frequently, we recommend to our customers through our product to do it weekly. You can have there's a scheduling configuration. You can do it weekly or bi-weekly. Some of our bigger clients start out monthly, and then they realize it's so valuable, they do it more frequently. But the check-ins take just a few minutes to update your objectives and specify where the bottlenecks are. Imagine that throughout the 90 days, the full quarter, you can check in every week for just 5 minutes a week, 5, maybe 10 at most. But you have a 5 days of work, and you just take 5 to 10 minutes to check in. You're on top of things. You're fully in the clear of what's going on. You know what objectives are really behind. You can get help, alignment, and figure out how to turn the ship around. It's amazing what you can accomplish when everybody is really on top of the progresses in real time, and not code behind. And let's talk about the practical alignment. When I say real world practical, there's a ton of misconception about how alignment can work, and a lot of the advice that I've seen and read on some blogs and Medium articles that I've seen, they're just not pragmatic, and it's very high level and kind of incomprehensible to put in the real world practice. So we boiled it down to 3 ways of aligning things that actually work, and we have thousands of users around the world globally using these practices, and this actually does work in the real world. But remember, if you don't have alignment in your organization, if you don't actually create alignment, and by the way, if you don't use OKRs, because in and of themselves they already are the path to alignment, right? They're using OKR solves 2/3 of the problem in the first place of real misalignment on all kinds of organizational problems. But remember, rowing harder in the wrong direction, rowing harder doesn't help if the boat is headed in the wrong direction, right? That's a professor of strategy at, I think it's Caltech, Kenichi Omae. But the bottom line is, if you don't have objectives in alignment, you are possibly going fast, but just in a very wrong direction. So 3 levels of alignment. Alignment 101. This one is very simple. There are different levels of organizational alignment. Like Roger talked about team alignment, not just top corporate OKRs. It's not just like 3 or 4 or 5 big company objectives and then, hey, everybody, go ahead and do them. What the heck does that mean? Like, what are my objectives to help the company achieve its objectives? Every level of the company has theirs. There's top company OKRs, who's the owner. And by the way, you have to have an owner, a DRI, directly responsible individual. That's actually a term coined by Steve Jobs at Apple, that every objective had to have a DRI. If there's no responsibility, there's no accountability, right? If there's nobody responsible for the goal, who's accountable for its completion, for doing retrospective, for figuring out why we missed, right? And everybody has to own, and every goal has to be owned by some specific individual to be accountable and responsible for it. So departments, team shared goals, department shared goals, even individuals. And let me talk to you quickly, before discussing alignment 101, and I need to rush here, but I apologize for the speed here. But again, you'll have our email addresses. We'll do another one where we go deeper. But cascading, or some people call it waterfalling, the process of creating individual or team OKRs from the ones higher up, right? From the corporate or from departmental business units. Alignment is the process of actually connecting one to another. It means connecting, individual to your teams, and sometimes connecting means directly and algorithmically, which is contribution, right? And sometimes alignment can mean alignment 101, which is this section, and I'm just about to tell you, it's very loose relationship based. But contribution is the most advanced level. It's actually mathematical. So when you have sub objectives that contribute to an objective or key results that are basically measuring the objective, the progresses actually mathematically adjust. Like in our software, it's automatic. When the sub objectives or the key results are updated, they contribute mathematically up, and the overarching composite progress of the goal to which they contribute or align to actually gets adjusted. It's pretty magical, pretty great stuff, and people can see visually and like feel the heartbeat of it moving. But the alignment one-on-one is a loose one. And if you don't have software to do, alignment 201 or 301, just stick with this one. You can do this in a PowerPoint. It's very simple. And it really kind of is rooted in this quote from Laszlo Bock, who was People Ops SVP at Google, wrote the book on really kind of recipe for managing from Google. And he says, listen, having goals is great, improves performance, but spending hours cascading them up and down the company is not a good idea. It takes too much time. And what he means is like connecting every single objective in KR throughout thousands and thousands of employees. I agree with him 100%. It's totally unnecessary. But don't do the entire company. There's no point. Just focus on the objectives and key results. It's like the key things you want. And you can make some alignment on some teams where there's direct contribution and some teams to some business units. But you don't need to do the entire company all the way up and down. That's a big waste of time, and most companies shouldn't be doing that at all. But they should have spots of coverage where that is actually useful and helpful. So he says, look, just lay out the top company objectives, in your own, and you can see, whether anything is totally out of, not working or not really converging or stands out. And this is the most simplified approach. It has no actual contribution and mathematical linkage. It's just about informing directionally, right? And we say, look at the top corporate OKRs, look at your teams or your business units, look at your own individual ones, and something shouldn't be grossly out of alignment. In our product, it's very simple. You can see top over here, and this is the icon that I showed you on the title screen. It's like three things: top, team, my own. Hey, makes sense. They are all directionally sort of supporting each other, and therefore it's alignment 101. Loose alignment, loose relationship. Nothing fancy, but simple. Sometimes simplicity is key. Alignment 201 gets more advanced. Now, when you have objectives and their key results, and by the way, one thing I know is for some of you who may not have done OKRs before, you don't have the formula for OKRs, and we should have probably thrown it out here on this webinar. It's probably higher level than that, but in the next one you'll see more detail. But to unblock the confusion, the objective is basically the what you're going to do, and the key results is the how and the measurements of the objective. But let's say the objective is grow our business globally. Well, how are you going to measure it? Well, the key result could be our sales should be like at $100 million. Well, in our software, we have this functionality called KR ownership. It's pretty darn great stuff. And what it really does is it allows you, without overly complicated hierarchical alignments, just let somebody grab the key results. So if you're the CEO and you laid out a big strategic priority of business growth, and your top objective is grow our company in the UK by whatever, or grow our company globally, or whatever it is, whether it's a headline or with some measurability in it, the bottom line is the key result would be like, okay, get it to 100 million in sales, right, this quarter, or 5 million, whatever it is for your company. And just have the sales VP grab it, that key result, and own it, and make progress on it, and contribute up to the objective. The KR ownership is the second way to create alignment. Have somebody own it. They align to the big objective owned by the by the superior, by the CEO of the company, or it could be cross-functional as well. That's a more advanced topic beyond sort of this webinar, but you can see your own key result on someone else's objective. And basically it looks like this in plain English. Top corporate objectives, the first one is become a customer-centric company. That's owned by the CEO. The key result one could be net promoter score of 10 out of 10 from existing customers. By the way, that's very hard, but let's assume it's going to be 8 and above, right? Owned by someone. It could be the head of customer success team. And key result 2 could be reduce the installation of and waiting less than 90 days. It should be 20 days, whatever. Just made up OKR example, owned by someone else, and they own it. They update the key result, but the progress on the objective, become a customer-centric company, is automatically composite of the progresses of these key results. And when the CEO opens up the dashboard, for example, like one in our product, the CEO and everyone can see that progress being updated. Another way to do it, you have a couple of objectives and you can break it down and have multiple key results owned by different people. So in this case, objective 1, instead of objective 1 is grow the business globally and having one key result owned by the sales VP. Another version of it, like the second example, is let it be a sub-objective, and I'll show you that in the next section, what the sub-objective to objective hierarchy means. But you have multiple key results owned by different directors. Those key results basically contribute and align to the objective of the sales VP, and the sales VP's objective is aligned to the objective of the CEO. But what you don't see is maybe a couple of other objectives, maybe from the marketing VP and the product VP, also aligned, right, and contributing to this big objective of grow our business owned by the CEO. That's what you don't see here, but that's how it works, right? And therefore, that's a segue to Advanced Alignment 301. That is the full, we call it the true goal hierarchy. That's our technology allowing you to do objectives and sub-objective. This allows you to, one level at a time, very advanced. And I'm jumping around fast because I know I have very limited time here to not kind of go overboard. 2 minutes left. So some of the objectives are as pass-throughs because they may have sub-objectives under them or key results. It looks like this. It's a goal alignment hierarchy. It's visual. And goals and sub-objectives as well as KRs are shown so you can see how everything contributes. It looks like a goal, it looks like an org chart, but it's not an org chart. It's a goal alignment chart. It's actually an org chart for goals, not for people. You got to choose how you want this to be, a loose relationship or direct linkage. We actually recommend people start with loose relationship. Alignment 101 in the first 90 days, in the first quarter, maybe even 2. Done is better than perfect, right? It's kind of like get going, what Roger was saying earlier, because you don't want to try to make things perfect and create direct linkage and direct contributions. This is just another example, but we're definitely running out of time, so I'm going to skip this. We can do another webinar. I was going to just say, listen, OKRs are used by so many companies in the world today. It's like a globally popular phenomenon. If you want to get started, it's really easy. And we can help you make it even super easy. First of all, you should, we have an ebook on our website. Go to ateam.com and resources in the menu. We have a ton of ebooks about how to get started. Also, please take down, so Roger's email over here, Roger, there be giants. Any questions about getting started, or he can help you and work with your company to come up with your strategy, your strategic pillars, priorities, and your OKRs. As a consultant, Roger is fantastic, very knowledgeable, and a great guy to boot. And then my email, if you're interested more about learning how to automate this and make this super simple, create all the visual alignments and dashboards, that's our software. So you can work with both of us if you're interested. And I will obviously send you to the right people at our company or answer any questions. But, with that said, we ran out of time. I want to wish everybody an amazing rest of the week. Thank you for joining us. And if you have any questions, please email us. And we will follow up with another webinar, right, Roger? We should do something more detailed, I guess.
Yeah, happy to. Happy to.
Well, fantastic. Well, thank you all so much and have a wonderful day. And Roger, thank you so much for joining us and being a guest speaker.
That's great. No problem. Thanks, Ariane.
Take care. You all have
Cheers.
a great day. Bye-bye.